Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to HitScan. A long time ago when we did a lot more Overwatch content, we did Master Guides, which was where we looked at a particular hero in Overwatch and then spoke to a pro player or streamer that plays a lot of them on their best bits of advice, tips, mistakes that you can avoid, those kind of areas. We're doing the same thing here, we're looking at Breach and we'll be talking to Ec1s, who is the IGL and pro player for Fish123, the best team in EU currently, and he's going to give us his best advice on how to play this agent. If you want more content like this, like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what other agents you'd like to see next in these kind of guides, and who you would like us to talk to about them. But do definitely check out Ec1s, all of his details are in the description below, but let's get started. Breach is an agent I think that most people have said that he's probably one of the strongest when it comes to his kit and utility, but he's not really that popular. I don't tend to see him an awful lot, so off the bat, why should people be playing more Breach?
Obviously, I feel like his abilities are very, very strong for taking map control in general. Like, I think every single one of his abilities enables you to push someone off an angle. For example, if you're playing versus an AWPer, you can either flash him off the angle, stun him off that angle, or use the aftershock on that angle, where it allows you to then take map control and it forces them off the angle. So then if they want to fight you, they have to re-peek into you. And for example, if you're using an AWP and an AWPer re-peeks into you, it should be like 90% of the time you should kill him, unless he hits a ridiculous shot.
So it's all about like the pressure, I suppose, you can put on people, both like in an attacking and defensive way, right? That it's very tricky to push a Breach.
Yeah, 100%, because even if you do manage to push a Breach back in some case, he can always re-aggress in some way. Whether, say, for example, in Garage, you get pushed back off Garage, that in Garage, I can stun in Garage, I can use my Aftershock to clear it close, or I can use a multiple abilities and then flash and just retake the control, and there's nothing they can do for it.
He's kind of like a duelist in that way, because people like Brax like to do that specific play that you mentioned with like Phoenix, right? The Brax loves to sort of play within Garage and jump in and out of there depending on stuff. But speaking of which, they both have flashes, so why is Breach been used a lot more than, say, Phoenix?
Breach's flashes are a lot stronger than Phoenix's. They're very hard to turn a Breach flash, and even if you do, you still kind of get blind from it. Whereas the Phoenix flash is very easy to turn at this point in the game, and it's very predictable when one's coming. And even so, if you do get blind by the Phoenix flash, you know the guy's going to come around the angle, because in your head, you know what distance he's going to be away from that flash, and like you know the internal timing of when he's going to walk through that angle. Breach has a range of his flashes of 35 meters. So you can be, say, for example, right side of window on Haven, and you can flash your teammates into Garage. Like, people will not expect that. Say, if you're fighting mid and been spotted middle, they might not expect you to be able to flash into Garage so soon. And using stuff like that is very, can catch people off guard. Whereas with a Phoenix, obviously, if you see the Phoenix outside of Garage, you're going to be expecting a flash in Garage, and you can be prepared for that a lot easier.
I guess when you compare Breach to like the other like must-pick agents almost, like Sage and Cypher, you still see a lot of Sage and Cypher in competitive, and you can easily solo queue as those agents, but as Breach it seems really hard. So kind of what's the problem with playing Breach? Because it feels like you play him a lot of the time when you're playing within your team and playing like actual tournaments, but when you're doing more the show matching Twitch rivals kind of stuff, you personally don't like to play him as much, and a lot of people don't like to play him as much. So why is that?
I think his role within the team needs to be very set. In our team, for example, we have like lots of set plays that we use around Breach's ability. Compared to a mixed team, say, when I was playing with Scream or whatever, like, we didn't have a set composition. So I came in saying, listen, I can just fill and play whatever we needed. And we didn't have a Cypher player, so it's like, okay, I can play Cypher, that's fine. Because I'd still say Cypher and Sage are more important than a Breach. But I think with our mindset and our game style, Breach is very useful, because obviously we like to do a lot of like bursts and explosions, and his abilities really complement that. But in a mixed environment, stuff like that isn't set. So Sage and Cypher, these types of champs are very easy to play individually, whereas Breach is not an individually focused champ.
With you saying that, people that may be watching this that might want to consider maining him, would you kind of say maybe don't solo queue as Breach, maybe don't pick him up, or do you just have to sort of work a bit differently and a lot harder to get the same effective use out of him because he is so team focused?
So if you're going to be maining Breach in ranked, you have to change your mindset of it's mostly going to be individual based stuff that you need to do, and you can find a lot of good individual set plays to do with Breach, but you just need to understand that the teamwork from a ranked game is not going to be anywhere near a team's level. So you're just going to have to prepare for people like, say, for example, in Europe, we struggle with Russians as they are not allowed to speak due to some laws. So it's like the teamwork's not going to be great. So you have to rely on yourself individually. And for Breach, you need to completely change up the traditional game style of him to be able to work him in a comp.
A big question I wanted to ask is, what's like a big mistake that you see Breach players making when trying to learn the agent or just playing him in general?
I see people who aren't using the full skill set of abilities. He has a lot of abilities, and mainly people are just using the stun randomly and they're not thinking about it, how to get the most out of it, and mainly self-flashing for themselves, whereas it's a lot stronger to flash for a teammate. I feel like those are like some of the biggest problems I see in like people trying to learn Breach who aren't used to him as much. So you just need to really think about, how can I get the most out of this ability that I'm going to use, because you only get a certain amount per round. So you have to think very carefully, like where's the best position and how can I get the most out of this?
Well, that goes nicely onto the abilities, and we'll start with his signature stun. How do you get the most out of that? Because I feel, because it's on such a short cooldown to an extent at least, that you can just throw it out willy-nilly, but where do you want to be putting it? Areas of maps in particular, or in certain ways that gets the most use?
So for example, with his stun, you can, at the start of the round, I say use it most of the time, obviously to force people off angles. This is where it comes to you as an individual. You need to learn positions where it can hit the most amount of angles that are useful. So you can see where the stun gets on the mini map. So you can go in like an offline server on whatever map and think, okay, right, on this map, I like to go towards middle. Let's look on where in freeze time I can go on middle and set up a stun that I can clear off lots of angles to help me and my team take control of somewhere.
We can go over the flash a bit more in a second, because I think there's a lot more that you can do there, and overall you've sort of highlighted how much of an important piece of utility it is. But I often feel that the aftershock is sort of ignored or not focused on. There's some really obvious times to use it to try and flush out enemies that are on a corner that people are watching, but how do you put yourself in those situations where you can get the most out of that ability? Because it is super strong, right? It just feels that you can't often get those frags or do much with it, so how can you do more?
It's definitely not an ability that's designed to kill. Obviously, if someone stays there, like they are going to die, but it's more for flushing out people from hard to clear angles. For example, on split with the new box towards top and middle, that and playing beat upper is a very strong crossfire, and you don't want to be going into a crossfire. So one thing you can do, like once all their smokes have been used and you know that no one's going to be able to reposition into that angle, you can use the aftershock ability to clear out that angle, and if someone's there, they've forced out into the open, which makes it an easy kill. Or if obviously for whatever reason they want to stay there, then it's a free kill. So it's not really an ability that kills people who are smart. It's just for clearing out angles and positions, I'd say.
And I guess finally, when it comes to abilities then, the flash. What kind of mistakes can you see people making with that first and foremost? Because it is a fairly straightforward ability to use, but I am wondering if there is anything that you think people are doing wrong, like a bad habit that they should really stop trying to do.
I think the flash is quite hard not to be at least decent with, because obviously it's a point and click flash. Like, you know exactly where it's going to pop. You can't really misthrow a flash. But one thing I don't see people doing too much of is using flashes to blind rotators. So for example, you can use your first flash to enter the site, where obviously if someone's holding, they're going to get blind and it pushes them back. You can then use that second flash even deeper to blind people who have been pushed off the initial angle, or to then blind people who are rotating in. This is something that's commonly used on Haven, for example. So say B side on Haven, I can flash like high left or high right, and we can push into the site. I can then choose to flash back site. So when my teammates are pushing back site, anyone there is going to be full blind also. And it's just thinking about where the best positions are for these flashes to go and how they can help your team the most.
I think when it comes to the ultimate, Rolling Thunder is probably one of the strongest out there that isn't just outright to kill people, right, or gain intel. You had some really good like retakes when you were playing in the Twitch Rivals tournament against like Scream's team and stuff. How's the best way to set that up? Because it feels that if you have the ultimate and use it right, you can always take a retake.
With that ultimate, depending on what side you are, you can always win the round off the back of it. It is so strong, it completely makes whoever gets hit by the ult useless for a good 5 seconds. And for example, obviously using it as a retake is very strong on the defensive side. As the defensive side, we found it very hard to make use of the ult offensively. Obviously, a lot of positions in maps, it can be viable, but it's very gambly, because if we're going to do it, you need to do it quite early into the round, and it can just be a waste. So I think the percentage play, obviously, like the one that's most likely going to wield some results from it is saving it for a retake, for example, where you know people are going to be on the site and you know you have to go and clear out a lot of crossfires. So this can completely remove the crossfires and stops them from being able to kill you. So it can completely change around just off this one ult.
And do you feel that things that people could do wrong is obviously using it really early in a round to try and catch people out, or would you say that's actually not a bad way of using it?
Obviously on the attacking side, using it to entry a site is very strong. Even if that is more gambly, obviously you won't be exactly sure where people are going to be playing, but you can use it in a general area that can clear out a lot of the close and hard to clear positions, making it a lot easier for your team to get into the site. But for defensively, I'd say a mistake people use is just using it randomly without any thought or any kind of like process behind it. Say, for example, Mixo and his team used it against us one time where we had a lot of pressure towards A on the attacking side, and they used a Rolling Thunder defensively on us to push A short. Stuff like that is like, it's aggressive and it's not 100%, but it's a thought out play, and that's fine because obviously it works and it can catch us off guard, because a lot of teams do expect it to be used for a retake. So mixing it up is a good thing, but it needs to be a thought out process to why you're going to use it aggressively and have a game plan behind it. So even if you don't get the kills from it, you can take the full side of A control in that scenario, and then you can stack heavy towards the other sides.
But it feels more often than not you want to save it for retakes, because it makes the attacking team think about where they want to position themselves. Kind of like an orbital strike, right? That the teams will see that you have it, and then they're always kind of on edge on their positioning, and you can almost make mistakes off of that without even using the ultimate, right? Because everybody's so skittish.
Yeah, and that is one thing that comes into play. Like it brings up a scenario where mind games are a big thing. I remember we played versus Mixwell's team, and we were going towards A, and we made it quite obvious that we were going towards A, and I had the rolling foot. So we expected them to play retake, obviously, like off the site, so they won't get hit by the ult, obviously. So we just then decided, listen, they're smart. They're going to realize we have the ult. They're not going to play on. And so then like that allowed us to walk up onto site for free because they were playing a retake situation. So mind games can be a big thing for it. And that, even like you said, it makes people scared. It makes people skittish because obviously they know if they're getting hit with that ult on A site, they're going to not be able to hold it and they're just going to die and put their team at a big disadvantage.
Now, you and the majority of people in Fish123 and also the Prodigy guys, everybody that's sort of doing really well in the EU scene has a Counter-Strike background. Playing Cypher and Sage, I can understand being fairly straightforward. You don't need to change up the fundamentals too much. How do you play in a general playstyle breach?
So especially on our T side, due to us only having 2 flashes, because only breach can have maximum of 2 every round, we realized we need to use these flashes for the right time. I can't just use these flashes to make an individual play then potentially die. If we have a set game plan that we're going to execute onto a site or burst onto a site, I need to be alive and I need to be able to use these flashes. Whereas in CS, you have 10 flashes on a team that can be used. So it's a lot more forgiving in CS if people mess up or use utility not as efficiently. But in this game, it needs to be really thought out and thought after. I might take angles differently and force my other teammates to go in front of me. which they don't like, but that is just the reality of it. Say, for example, if we need flashes to do the set round, I need someone to go in front of me, obviously take more of a risk. If in the set round I need to use all of my abilities, I can't be at a risk of dying. And obviously things can happen, like the guy could double kill us or whatever, but that's understandable. But say, for example, if my teammate kills one, he gets traded, then I trade the other person. It works out, and his abilities aren't going to be used for that set strat. So that allows me to then say, even if my teammate does die, we can still do the same round if needed.
I guess it's like a big focus then on the flashes, probably being the most important bit of Breach's kit. So would you say a good thing to sort of get good with Breaches to like learn the flashes and when to use them? Is that like the most important tip that you could give?
Yeah, I'd say the most important tip is learn the flashes that are going to be like the most effective and get the most angles, and even combining these flashes together with your team to allow you to get the most map control. Obviously, I gave an example before of like on B site Haven, but you can even do it on C. You can say flash high towards like the close of C long. Then once your teammates are running up and getting towards back site, you can then flash back site. There's going to flash anyone, back left, back site, or in CT. This allows your team to be able to push up on site a lot more freely, and allows them to take a lot more control for free. So this is the most important thing to realize as a Breach player. You're helping your teammates take a lot of map control.
So for all of those new Iron 1 players that want to pick up Breach, in short, what do you have to sort of say to them in advice, when to play them, how to play them? What should people be getting themselves in for, I guess?
I feel like for people who are a lot lower ranked and you want to play the champ, you just need to play it and just try out things for yourself. You can't go in expecting to be the best Breach in the world on day one. You need to figure out what works and what works for you and what doesn't work. And obviously it's not a very easy task, as Breach is not the most individually selfish champ. His abilities complement his teammates a lot. So in lower end matchmaking, you might struggle. And that's just something that you need to be prepared for if you're willing to learn the.
And finally, you guys at Fish123 are taking EU by storm currently, but you also stream, all of you guys, and you're even putting out YouTube like guides and stuff too. So where can people see more of yourself and also the team?
So we've made a Twitter account for our team currently. It is Fish123 VALORANT on Twitter. I myself, I've created a YouTube channel, which is Ec1s, pronounced Ec1s. It's on YouTube. I currently have 240 subs, which is pretty decent for me. I'm going to be making a lot more in-depth guides on Valorant, producing frag movies and stuff like this, all kinds of Valorant content.
That's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Like I said before, do check out all of Ec1s' details in the description. And also, if you would like us to do a particular agent next, let me know in the comments below and who ideally you would like us to talk to. Do bear in mind it's going to be difficult to get the likes of Hiko and Brax on this channel, but it might be a streamer that you know that's in Valorant rank that knows a lot about a particular agent. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.